Hey there, how's your week been? I hope everything's going well. Tonight, instead of thinking about all the pressures out there, I want us to just relax for a bit. And I have a story that I bet will completely change how you see something very, very familiar. So, I want to start with a simple question for you. What is a Lego brick? No, seriously. When I ask that, you probably think, well, it's a piece of plastic. A kid's toy, right? And you're not wrong. But what if I told you that every single one of those bricks is actually a word? And that all the billions and billions of Lego bricks in the world, whether they're in a brand new box or lost under your sofa, are all speaking the same single secret language. Sounds a little crazy, doesn't it? But trust me on this. Just stick with me through this story, because decoding that language is the key to understanding the greatest secret behind Lego's success. Our story doesn't begin with plastic, but with wood. Imagine a small, cozy wood workshop in the town of Billund, Denmark, back in the 1930s. There was a master carpenter named Ole Kirk Christiansen. He didn't just make toys, he created beautiful wooden works of art, from pull-along ducks to little trucks. His motto was, "Only the best is good enough." He was obsessed with quality. Every toy had to be perfect, durable, and safe. Do you remember your first wooden toy? That simple, authentic feeling it had? But then the world changed. Plastic arrived, this new miracle material. Ole bought one of the first plastic molding machines in Denmark and started to experiment. One of his first products was a small, plastic, interlocking brick. It was a good idea, but it had a fatal flaw. You could stack them, but they didn't really grip each other. The slightest nudge and the whole creation would fall apart. It was like a great idea that wasn't fully baked yet. You ever have that feeling with your own work? After Ole passed away, the Lego engineering team has to ensure that the dimensions of every single brick are accurate to within 0.002 of a millimeter. To put that in perspective, that is 10 times thinner than a single human hair. This insane precision is the grammar of the LEGO language. It ensures that every word, every brick, no matter where or when it was made, can connect with every other brick perfectly. A brick from your dad's old set will connect perfectly with a brick from your kid's new set. That isn't just quality, it's a promise, a foundation of trust. And upon that perfect grammatical foundation, an entire universe of infinite creativity was built. So, they had the grammar. But a language needs more than just grammar. It needs a vocabulary. And the way they built and expanded the vocabulary for Lego was a truly genius move, and for a time, it was almost their undoing. We'll get to that in the next part.
All right, so where were we? We've established the grammar of the Lego language, that perfect, super precise clutch power that allows every brick to connect flawlessly. But a language with perfect grammar and only 1 or 2 words is pretty boring, right? You can't write a poem or a novel with that. You need a vocabulary. And this is where the son, Gottfried Kirk Christiansen, truly became the architect of the Lego universe. He didn't just want to sell bricks, he wanted to create a system. In 1963, he sat down and wrote what is essentially the Lego Constitution, a list of 10 core principles. Think of them like the 10 commandments of play. I won't list all 10, but they included beautiful ideas like unlimited play potential, for girls, for boys, a long life, and quality in every detail. But the most important idea, the one that changed everything, was that every new piece they created had to fit into the system of play. So what is the system of play? It's actually a very simple but profound idea. It means that every single Lego element, no matter the set it comes from, must be able to connect with every other element. Think about it this way. Most toys back then were one and done. You'd buy a model car kit, you'd build the car, and that's it. The story ends there. But with the Lego system, the story never has to end. The wheels from that car you built today could become the engines of a spaceship tomorrow. The windows from a little house could become the eyes of a giant robot next week. The pieces are reusable, reconfigurable, and infinitely interchangeable. They weren't selling a noun, they were selling a language. Let me use another analogy. The clutch power is the grammar. The bricks are the alphabet. And the system of play is the guarantee that any letter can be combined with any other letter to form an infinite number of words and sentences.
And this leads to the most mind-boggling part of the entire Lego philosophy. Perfect, unbroken, backward compatibility. What this means is that a simple 2x4 red brick made today in 2025 will connect perfectly with a 2x4 red brick made in 1958. Let that sink in for a moment. Can you think of any other product in the world with that kind of consistency over nearly 70 years, especially in technology? You can't plug your new iPhone into a charger from the 1980s. Your new smart TV can't play a VHS tape. Technology is built on making the old stuff obsolete. Lego is built on the opposite principle. It's built on a promise that nothing you own will ever become obsolete. Every brick is a gift to the future. Every piece adds to the whole. Have you ever mixed up Lego sets from when you were a kid with new ones? It's kind of magical how they just work, isn't it? That seamless connection between decades. This is what made Lego so powerful. They created an operating system for the imagination, a platform that was so versatile, so consistent, and so full of potential that it seemed like it could never fail. It was a perfect language, a perfect system. Or so they thought. Because what happens when the people in charge of a perfect language start to forget how to speak it? What happens when you get so scared of the future, you break the one sacred rule that made you great? Well, you begin a journey that takes you right to the edge of collapse. And that's where our story goes next. So, there it was. A perfect system. A beautiful language of creation with a flawless grammar and an ever-expanding vocabulary. It had powered the company for decades. It seemed invincible. How could anything possibly go wrong? Well, that brings us to the late 1990s. And to understand what happened next, we have to talk about one of the most powerful forces in business and in life. Fear. The world was changing, and it was changing fast. The first PlayStation had arrived. The Nintendo 64 was a global phenomenon. The internet was exploding into homes around the world, and a new story began to take hold in the media. Kids don't play with physical toys anymore. Lego is old-fashioned. The future is digital. And Lego got scared. They were terrified of being left behind. Have you ever felt that pressure? The fear of becoming irrelevant. So you start chasing every new shiny trend, and in the process, you kind of lose sight of who you are and what you were good at in the first place. It happens to us in our own lives, in our careers, and it happened to Lego. In their panic, they did the one thing that the architect of their language, Gottfried Kirk Christensen, would have never done. They started to forget their own language. It started subtly. They began to believe that their core language, the simple brick, wasn't cool enough. So they started introducing foreign words into their universe. They launched lines like Jackstone and later Galador. If you've never heard of them, there's a good reason. Instead of being sets you could build from scratch, they were basically pre-molded action figures with a few Lego studs tacked on as an afterthought. They were imposters, tourists in the LEGO universe. They broke the most sacred rule of the system. A piece from a Jackstone figure couldn't really be used to build a castle. An arm from a Galador character was just... It seemed like a good idea, making it easier for kids. But what they were actually doing was stealing creativity. They stopped teaching the alphabet and just started handing out pre-written paragraphs. The infinite possibility of the system was shrinking. They were diluting their own language, making it weaker with every new overly specialized piece they created. And the final step in forgetting their language? They started expanding into everything, with no clear connection to their core. Lego-branded clothes, Lego video games that had very little to do with building, Lego theme parks. On their own, these weren't necessarily bad ideas, but they were a symptom of a much deeper problem, an identity crisis. The company that had built its success on a single, perfect, unified system was now a chaotic mess of 1,000 different, disconnected ideas. The result was a financial catastrophe. The designs were uninspired, the quality dropped, the fans were confused, and the company's costs spiraled out of control. By 2003, the Lego Group was losing over $1 million every single day. They were on the verge of total collapse. The banks were calling. The end seemed terrifyingly near. The beautiful, perfect language that had been carefully built over 50 years was now a confusing babble of broken grammar and foreign words. The system was broken. The magic was gone. It seemed like the story was over. But sometimes, to save something you love, you don't need a flashy, new, brilliant idea. Sometimes, you just need someone who remembers the beauty of the very first words ever spoken. And that person was about to walk through the door. So there Lego was, standing on the edge of a cliff, about to disappear into history. The company was a mess. The beautiful, logical language they had built was buried under a mountain of confusing, disconnected ideas. The system was broken. The magic was gone. It felt like the end. But, as I said, sometimes, to save something you love, you don't need a flashy new idea. You just need someone who remembers the beauty of the very first words ever spoken. And in 2004, that person walked through the door. His name was Jørgen Vig Knudstorp. Now, Jørgen wasn't a toy maker. He wasn't a lifelong Lego employee. He was an outsider, a former business consultant. And that turned out to be his greatest strength. He didn't have the emotional baggage. He could look at the chaos objectively and see what was truly broken. So what was his grand, genius plan to save the company? He didn't have one. Instead, his first move was to simply listen. He went to the people who were still fluent in the original pure LEGO language, the fans. He and his team started talking to the AFOLs, the adult fans of LEGO, the community that had been ignored during the company's panic. And what did they tell him? They told him they didn't want the dumbed-down single-purpose toys. They told him they loved the challenge. They loved the creativity. They loved the system. They loved the classic brick. Armed with this knowledge, Jørgen began what I like to call the great linguistic purification. First, he took a giant dictionary of all the Lego parts and started ripping out the pages. He ruthlessly cut the number of unique Lego elements by almost half, from over 12,000 down to about 6,000. All the foreign words, the pieces that didn't fit, the ones that broke the grammar, they were gone. It was a painful process, but it was necessary. He was clearing out the noise to find the signal. Second, he refocused the entire company back on the core product, the brick, the system of play. He reminded everyone, from the designers to the marketers, what the
You see, Lego had already partnered with brands like Star Wars before the crisis, but it was just one of many chaotic ideas. Now it became a core strategy, but with a completely new and profound philosophy. Lego didn't just slap a Star Wars logo on a box, they did something much more difficult and much more beautiful. They took a beloved story from another universe and meticulously translated it, word for word, into the language of Lego. Think about the Millennium Falcon. It's one of the most iconic spaceships in cinematic history, full of curved lines, intricate details, and a whole lot of character. The challenge for the Lego designers was, how do you tell the story of that ship using only the vocabulary of the Lego system? How do you translate those smooth curves and complex mechanics into the strict geometric grammar of studs and bricks? The result was a masterpiece. It was undeniably the Millennium Falcon, but it was also quintessentially LEGO. This approach was a win-win. It showed deep respect for the Star Wars universe, which made Star Wars fans happy. And it showed deep respect for the Lego system, which made Lego fans happy. They proved that the Lego language wasn't just for building simple houses and cars. It was a universal language, powerful enough to tell the most epic stories in modern pop culture. From the halls of Hogwarts Castle to the streets of Gotham City. What's your favorite Lego translated set? Is it the Millennium Falcon, the Hogwarts Castle, the Batmobile? I'd love to know which story you think they translated best. So, the comeback was complete. Jørgen Vig Knudstorp and his team had saved the company by reminding it of its own identity. They had purified their language. They had proven they could use it to translate any story in the world. But their next move was perhaps the most radical of all. They decided to hand the pen over to the most fluent speakers they knew, the fans themselves. So let's recap where we are. Lego has rediscovered its soul. They've purified their language, focusing back on the core brick. And they've become master translators, able to tell the world's most popular stories using their unique, universal system. They had turned the company around. They were saved. They could have stopped there, and it would have been an amazing comeback story. But they didn't. They made one more move. A move that was so brilliant, so forward-thinking, that it cemented their place not just as a toy company, but as a cultural platform. They asked themselves a simple question. What happens when you give a perfect, universal language to millions of creative, passionate people all over the world? The answer? They start writing their own novels. As the internet grew, so did this incredible global community of AFOLs, adult fans of Lego. These weren't just casual builders. These people were fluent. They were linguistic masters. They were building jaw-dropping, epic creations, castles, spaceships, entire cities that were often more ambitious and more beautiful than the official sets Lego was designing. For years, this was just a hobby that existed on the fringes of the internet. But Jørgen Vig Knudstorp and the new leadership team saw it for what it was: the world's largest, most passionate, and most talented focus group. And instead of ignoring them or seeing them as competition, they did something truly radical. They invited them in. They launched LEGO Ideas.
The concept was beautiful in its simplicity. It was a website where any fan from anywhere in the world could submit a design for a Lego set they had dreamed up. Their own original idea, perfectly translated into the Lego language. Then, The rest of the community could vote on it. And here was the magic. If a project managed to get 10,000 votes, the Lego group promised to officially review it. They would bring it to their headquarters in Billund, sit down with their top designers, and seriously consider turning that fan's dream into a real, official Lego set that would be sold in stores worldwide. Think about how revolutionary that is. The speakers of the language were now invited to become its official authors. The listeners became the storytellers. Suddenly, a fan who was passionate about the Beatles could design the Yellow Submarine. A science enthusiast could create a perfect museum-quality replica of the NASA Apollo Saturn V rocket. Someone who loved the TV show Friends could meticulously recreate the Central Perk coffee shop, down to the last detail on the orange sofa. And all of these became real sets. Have you ever browsed the LEGO Ideas site? The creativity on there is just mind-blowing. It's like a gallery of pure imagination. Lego had essentially turned its entire customer base into its research and development department. They weren't just selling bricks to people anymore. They were giving them a language, a platform, and a voice. They were co-creating the future of their own universe, together with the people who loved it most.
Which brings us all the way back to the beginning, back to that simple, quiet moment. You, a pile of colorful plastic bricks, and the gentle, satisfying click-clack as you connect them, one by one. Why is that feeling so relaxing, so deeply meditative? We finally have the answer. It's because in that moment, you are speaking a perfect language. Our real world is often chaotic. It's messy, ambiguous, illogical, and confusing. Things don't always fit together the way they should. But the Lego language is pure. The rules are absolute. The grammar never breaks. The 2x4 brick will always be a 2x4 brick. It will always connect perfectly. It will always work. The feeling of calm that washes over you when you build doesn't just come from the focus or from using your hands. It comes from the deep, primal satisfaction of creating perfect, logical order out of a pile of colorful chaos. It is the profound joy of fluency. The story of Lego isn't just the story of a toy or a company that almost failed. It's the story of a perfect system, a language designed for infinite creativity, but built on a foundation of absolute, unwavering consistency. And it's a quiet, gentle reminder that sometimes, in a world that's always shouting about the next big, complicated thing, the most complex and beautiful stories can be told with the very simplest of words. Sleep well.